I think we're live. I'm pretty sure we're live. I think we're live. Yes. Good morning, everybody. And yes, today is the 18th of March. Yesterday was St. Patty's Day. For those of you who are Irish, for those of you who celebrate St. Patty's Day, I think it was my sister's birthday, one of my sister's birthdays yesterday as well. So anyway, we always remember St. Patty's Day. And if you celebrated, all of you Irish people out there, I hope you had fun. I hope you had lots of fun, and I hope you had lots of good food. What?
Just a little Irish.
You're just a little Irish?
11%.
Okay. And for those of you who didn't realize this, well, before we begin the introductions, first of all, I'd like to say, obviously, good morning to all of you. We're going to wait because I know some of you are not even on yet. So we'll wait for people to sort of join in. But first of all, I'd like to say good morning to my spirit guide, Grey Eagle, who is actually standing between us at the moment. Watch yourself. Just watch it now. And good morning to Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
And this morning we have a visitor. Some of you will have seen him before because this is not the first time, right?
No.
Been on this show. But this is my friend Jeff, who is here from Maine. And what do you think of the weather so far?
It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Don't want to mess up all my friends in Maine that are struggling through the winter and spring, early spring, but
is it awful?
70 and sunny is wonderful.
Yeah. Is it awful? The snow, the cold.
Yeah, the end of March, early April is not a lot of fun. But then
you're starting into mud season, aren't you?
Yeah,
that's what's
Yeah.
And so it's not. Well, you just did have a big snowfall, right?
I got a call this morning and they said it's been 40 degrees since I left and most of the snow is gone. So down in southern Maine,
you'd consider that to be fine, wouldn't you? Consider that to be really good weather, right?
Oh yeah, this time of year for sure.
Yeah. So, but here we are. We've got fabulous breezes. It's beautiful weather. Is it 70? I think it's about 70 degrees, which is cold for those of us who live in Florida.
Well, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, so it feels pretty nice to me. They know I'm from away when I'm wearing shorts, and everybody else is in their long pants.
We're wearing long pants, and because you get used to the temperature. You really do. You just get used to the warm weather, and your blood thins. I think because you're in the warm weather all the time. So when it gets chilly. When it gets to about 72 or 73, it's cold.
It's chilly, awful. It's awful.
Anyway, it is really, even I think that it's a beautiful day today. Lots of lovely spring breezes. And we're starting to see, have you been on your bike, riding on your bike?
Not yet.
But you'll notice that there are flowers starting to bloom now, and it's a really great place to be. All right. That being said, Chris, do we have anybody there?
We do. Barb, Annika, Rhonda, Carol, Eric. They're all putting things in the chat room, so feel free to add to the chat room if you haven't said good morning. Rhonda loves your scarf, Rosemary.
Oh, do you like it, Jeff?
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Samantha said to me this morning.
Stylish.
She said, "What's that you've got round your neck?" That's what are you wearing round your neck this morning, my daughter said. I said, well, I'm just, changing it up a bit.
You usually have that nice medallion.
I do. I don't have it on today. Yeah, because you can't really have that on a scarf.
Right.
But, I like scarves. I used to wear scarves a lot. I've got a lot of really nice scarves. This is a nice silk scarf. Don't feel it. Look. See?
Oh, that's nice. One of my favorites.
Anyway, so do we have any comments or any questions? Because we're going to do something a little bit different this morning than we would normally do. Let me just move this camera, see if I can get Jeff a bit more in there. For those of you who can see over Jeff's shoulder, it's my dining table with all of my bathroom stuff all over it. It's the way it is. My bathroom is empty. So the table's housing all of the stuff All right, so go ahead, Chris. Do we have any questions, any comments?
No questions. Annika's saying winter decided to make a late appearance on the cusp of spring arrival with more than a foot of snow here in the western corner of Connecticut on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, I can remember even in England, I can remember we once had snow in April, at the beginning of April. My daughter's birthday's in April, so you remember these things, don't you? But we once had snow at the beginning of April. And in fact, when I think about it now, the week before my daughter was born on the 7th of April. And the week before, all during the whole week before she was born, I mean, we don't really get snow in England. No, we get snow, but we don't get it that badly. But in April, wow, it was pretty much unheard of. But it snowed for the whole week before my daughter arrived. And on the day that she was born, the sun came out, and the sun has been out for me ever since. Do you like
Aw.
that analogy there?
My dad came from an agricultural family. They were self-supporting out of necessity, but they always called the spring snow poor man's fertilizer.
Oh, yeah?
Because this April snow would, re-wet the ground. It
Yeah,
was
soak the
just
ground.
before the planting season, so they always kind of liked it.
I've never heard that before.
yeah.
Poor man's fertilizer. That's
Right.
that's good. Yeah.
I guess it's just an optimistic way to look at a spring storm, but
Yeah.
whatever.
We
Yeah.
like his attitude.
Yeah, he had a pretty good attitude. He
Okay.
does have.
One
So-
more, Rosemary. Rhonda says, I learned so much from the webinar last Saturday.
Oh, good. Oh, Rhonda, yes, I do remember you were there. I wondered if it was our Rhonda because I consider you all mine. You're my groupies, right? So yeah. Oh, well, good. Thank you for saying that, Rhonda. I really, really enjoyed it. It went so fast. We did a workshop on healing, Jeff, last Saturday.
I poked in a little bit
Oh, did you?
around beforehand. I knew it was coming up.
Right, right. It was, I enjoyed it. I was surprised that we didn't have too many people with too many questions. But I think people get a little bit shy, don't they, when you say to them, okay, any questions, and all of a sudden people clam up a bit. Anyway, but that, so other than that, well, Rhonda, I'm really glad that you enjoyed that. Any other comments or any other questions?
There are two questions, Rosemary. I'm not sure if you want to take them now or after the story time.
Yeah, no, I'll take them now. Thank you.
All right. Paula's asking, how do I learn about my spirit guide?
Oh, Paula, I'm the wrong person to. You're laughing. Would you like to answer that question for us?
No, no,
Are you being a coward?
no,
No?
no. I just had, it ties into what I was going to talk about today.
Oh, that's very
So,
interesting.
Good
Oh,
question. Good question.
very good. Who is it asking this question?
This is Paula.
Paula. Good question, Paula. You should actually now pay attention because that's interesting, right? You should pay attention because Jeff is going to tell us a story this morning. Yes, I know, but there we are. It is not my story time this morning, but I'm bound to interfere. I mean, I'm bound to say something.
I'm hoping.
How are you? Oh, thank goodness. So we are both going to be. I don't even know what story I told him this morning. Pick any story you like. Choose any story you like. But apparently, then the spirit guides come into it a little bit, which is good. Most people do not have a spirit guide. We have our angels, we have our family, we have our loved ones in the spirit world, our family and our friends. But only a person who works full time. I know there's a lot of talk about spirit guides, and I'm only telling you what I believe. Other people believe differently. I've had people who tell me that they've got 6 spirit guides. I've had people tell me that they've got 2 and they're with them 24/7. I've had lots of people talk about spirit guides, and I'm sure all of you listening have heard, different things. I can only tell you what I believe. I believe that a spirit guide, as Grey Eagle is, a spirit guide is a very highly evolved spiritual being. In other words, it's a little bit like, how can I put it? Yeah. It's a little bit like a first-year nurse, a first-year nursing student going into, let's say, New York hospital, and expecting the major number one of all in the hospital, and perhaps even in the country, heart surgeons walking around with her on a daily basis, instructing her and giving her stuff, to explaining stuff to her. You wouldn't expect that highly educated and revered doctor with all of his qualifications to have time to go around with his first year nurses. He might pop his head in from time to time. He might want to say something from time to time, but he would never be a teacher of a first year nurse because his talents, his experience would be wasted. So by the same token, when we're talking about spirit guides who are, again, I'll say it, highly evolved spiritual entities, those spirit guides, they're looking for someone who is going to work with them on a full-time basis. So if I only did my work 2 hours a week and then went and did something else, or was not invested completely in what I'm doing, then I wouldn't need a spirit guide. Why would I? I wouldn't need the knowledge that a spirit guide could give to me. I wouldn't need the knowledge that a spirit guide would be able to share with me. So so I think there's a lot of myth around spirit guides and what they do, what they're supposed to do, and so on. Do you want to say anything to that? I know I can see you're itching to raise.
Yeah, I am. I'm itching because I think that for me, being uneducated or inexperienced really around spiritual contact, when I get a message, I was thinking about the lady that was just asking the question about spirit guide, and when I have that sensation that I've been given a message, that I've been given the right thing, I know what's right in my heart.
You feel it.
You feel it.
Yeah.
And I believe that I'm given insights at times. I don't consider it to be a quote unquote spirit guide, but I think it's a truth that lives in all of us. And once I listen, and that doesn't come very
You believe
often.
that you believe that you're being guided, but not necessarily by a spirit guide. You're being guided by what? Your loved ones in the spirit world, maybe, or
I've never really assigned a meaning since meeting Rosemary, and even before, I never really assigned an identity to where that message came from. But I know that within me, I'm connected to everything.
Yeah.
I believe that. And I get those messages and I know it. And I know that it's right. It happened to me this.
But you would never say my spirit guide told me, because you don't connect with that.
No,
right?
it isn't something that I feel is a way to identify it. I really think about being universally connected, and I think we all are. And I think there are people who are evolving and learning as they listen, as they meditate. They learn to feel and to know that their conscience is right. If I was going to say I had a spirit guide, it would be probably around some life-changing decision that I had to make. My spirit guide helped me make that decision. I could say that.
But it wouldn't be a spirit guide.
I don't believe it's a spirit guide doing that. I think it's an experiential thing.
It might be your father. It might be someone in your family in the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might be you talking to me.
I think the phrase is used loosely.
Yes, I do.
And that's all. I don't mean it to be an insult or a judgment on anyone, but I realize I think the term spirit guide is used very loosely and really not.
And often incorrectly. So I think the better question would be, how do you get in touch with those who are guiding you and who's steering you, which is your family? How do you learn to listen more to them? And I think that, the webinar that we did, I think Rhonda would agree, the webinar that we did last Saturday is one way of we have to, before we start to listen, we have to raise our level of consciousness. And it's Saturday and it's story time. So we can't talk about raising our level of consciousness this morning necessarily, except briefly. But we have to be able to we need to learn to listen. We need to learn to be aware. We need to learn to tune in, if you like, not only to those in the spirit world, but we need to learn to tune into our own soul also. And it takes a while. On Thursday mornings, we are starting maybe once a month or twice a month. We're starting to do more exercises. I'm starting to show you how that by doing certain exercises, you can raise your level of consciousness. So that you can become more in tune, more tuned into your own self, your own soul, but also more tuned into those in the spirit world who love you and who care about you. So I think, okay, so any other question before we begin? Because we are going to start our story time anytime, any minute now.
Carol's asking, she says, I don't know if this is allowed, but do you think that there will be a surgeon to put me right? I'm having quite a time here.
What isn't allowed? That you should ask the question?
Yes.
Okay. Well, do you know that, Chris? You're saying yes. Do you know that, or is that what Carol's saying? Let's be very, very careful not to assume what it is that she's saying.
Yes, I know that she doesn't know that she can ask this question because it's story time.
Okay. Carol, you can ask any question you like. Whether I answer it or not is a whole other thing. But yes, of course, this question, of course, it's allowed. I think that we need to go a little bit more in depth with that than we have time for today. But I think what I'd like to do is maybe just to put you on our healing list and see if we can request that you find the right person for you, the right person medically for you. See if we can ask if that can be something that maybe we can help you with. So I think we can do that for you, darling. Yes. All right, so now it's story time. And usually I'm the one the only one here. So I'm the one telling the story, apart from Grey Eagle, who often reminds me of different stories. And he often, as I'm telling the story, he'll often have a little word. If I've forgotten the most important detail, he'll say, and what about when this was said or that was said? But anyway, today I invited Jeff because Jeff is a great storyteller. So let's get into our story, and we always begin our story once upon a time. So once upon a time,
Rosemary came to Maine, and we had a weekend event where she came and gave messages to people, and then did some teachings around her book Soul Signs.
I think we had a workshop too.
Yeah,
right?
that was that's kind of what I meant about the book. Was a workshop around how to use soul signs, and people ask questions. So for any of you that haven't looked at that book, please check it out. I'm not here to promote her books, but,
go on, you can.
but I can. Anyway, afterwards, she came to our place for a social. We have a cottage down by the sea, and she came down, and we got together. And I remember being in the living room with a whole bunch of people visiting, and Chris, you might have even been there. I'm not sure who was all there.
Can I just stop you? Was that the time when we did the lobster?
Yeah, it was probably.
It was the one and only time that I've ever had what was it called?
Lobster bake.
A lobster bake.
Well, that's only because you haven't been back. I may have been inviting you, but
It was fabulous.
Anyway, we were in the cottage, and I was milling around and being the host or whatever, just being there. And Rosemary made a comment. My wife Andrea and I, we lost a son to suicide a number of years back. It's been almost 20 years now, and somehow the conversation was about people on the other side, spirits on the other side, people coming through. And Rosemary made a comment, and I thought was a passing comment, on the other side of the room, and said, "Well, he's here." And I said, "Yeah, I know. He's always here, And she said, very sternly, "No, he's here."
Was I stern with you?
Yes. No, she's stern with me. That's good. That's good. I've learned a lot. I don't have a problem with that. I might not like it, but I don't have a problem with it. And I was caught short because I recognized in the moment that Eric had come through, and there was a message. I don't remember what the message was that day. We've had so many over the years. It's been amazing. But it was one of those times where I really understood that I don't listen generally in my life. I'm just going. I'm just doing. It's different now than it was when I was younger. I do listen more now, and I have practices to help me to get quiet so that maybe I'll hear. I'm not sitting waiting for my son to come through to talk to me. That may be a mistake on my part, but I do have meditation practices that I do. And that lesson in that day, first of all, I was embarrassed.
Were you?
Yeah, I was embarrassed. Not Rosemary didn't embarrass me, but I recognized that I don't listen. And here's an amazing woman giving me a message, helping me to see, and I wasn't listening.
You weren't paying attention.
I wasn't paying attention, and I wasn't in a zone where I've come to see Rosemary for that purpose, where it was a social event, but it just happens. So that helped me a lot. I had done a couple of ceremonies over the years, and that's what I wanted to talk about today.
I was going to say, can you explain what that means for people?
The ceremony?
Carry on.
Yeah, that's where I was going to start to do. She's helping me along here because
Okay.
we only have an hour.
He can talk for 2 hours easily. Oh, wait a minute, so can I.
So this particular ceremony is called, in Lakota, it's called Hanblecha, which means directly crying for a vision.
Can I just say, because there are people listening all over the world, so when Jeff says Lakota, you're talking about the Native American Lakota tribe,
Right, one
which
tribe,
is what you are connected with, right?
Right.
Okay, so go ahead. So
I was going to get there, but that's good.
sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. So the Hanblecha, it's also called a vision quest, and it's a time traditionally where you sit for 4 days in a space somewhere off in the woods or off on the plains, someplace where you're at, and you sit for 4 days and you meditate. No food, no water, and it's fine.
no food, no water for 4 days.
Correct. And you struggle the first day thinking about the food and the water, and then it goes away. And for me personally, I didn't know often whether I was sleeping or awake, dreaming or seeing. I wasn't hallucinating. There was nothing like that. That denotes kind of a negative, scary thing.
Some people would say you're in a bit of delirium, lacking food and water, right?
I don't think I was.
That, is it?
No, it's not. It's not that. We can go a long time. I mean, it's not a lot of physical activity. You're sitting still. I mean, it's not like you're working out or climbing.
What you're
a mountain.
doing is you're raising your level of consciousness, aren't you?
Bingo.
You're putting yourself into that place.
She just mentioned that,
Yeah.
and the instructions that I was given, because the fellow that put me out on the hill is one of the terms they use. They put you on the hill. He knew that I'd be very nervous. He knew that I have a busy mind. He knows that I talk a lot. He knows me.
This man is Lakota.
Mm-hmm. And he just passed away a week and a half ago. And he's still there very much. He's been a dear friend and he's taught me a lot. But one of the lessons that he gave me when he put me on the hill was to listen for 7 sounds. That was the first tool that he gave me. And he said, you just sit. And he sat outside my space and he just sat with me because he knew it was going to be difficult for me. First time I'd ever done it. And he said, you listen for 7 sounds. And then he stopped talking. And it was quiet. And then the noise began. There was a bird over here and a bird over here and a bird over there. And then there was wind rustling the leaves and there was my breath and our heartbeats. And you start to listen into those 7 sounds, and I got quieter. Now, I still was obsessing about being thirsty, food, being in a strange environment, something I'd never done before. But each time that monkey mind of mine, the squirrel cage in my head got moving, I would go back to the 7 sounds. And then he said, after you hear the 7 sounds, listen and try to discern which direction they're coming from. So it brought me even deeper into the bird to my left, which might have been the west, and the rustle to my right, which may have been my east, and then south and north and up and down and present. So we have 7 directions. So I could listen in that fashion. And after the first day, it was automatic. When I heard something, I didn't automatically look to see what direction it was coming from. I just felt it. And it was the first time in my life, honestly, that I'd felt that kind of quiet. where I was so tuned in, sitting on the ground, barefoot, pair of shorts on, nothing but a wool blanket and a tarp in case it got really bad. They gave us those things. And back in traditional days, that didn't happen. But this man was very caring and loving and knew that we didn't have the experience. And you could be subjected to elements when you're there. Lightning storms, which have happened for me, hailstorms, which have happened for me. In fact, when I go and do the Vision Quest, they know the weather's going to change. That just seemed to be the case with me. So that was the beginning of my listening. Then another tool that he gave me another time, another year, was think about your memory of your earliest teacher. And then he took it away from being an academic school teacher to someone in my neighborhood. Remember the lady that used to give you a cookie, or that you mowed the grass for? Or he took me back and back and back. And I can remember a memory of laying on the lawn of a neighbor looking for 4-leaf clovers. Happy St. Patty's Day yesterday. And she would give me a nickel if I found a 4-leaf clover.
Oh, yeah.
And I would lay on her lawn for hours. And I realized, I'm getting choked up thinking about it. I realized that that was a time when I was quiet. And my upbringing, my household life was not fantastic. I got 3 squares a day, meals. I had a clean place to sleep. I had a house to live in. My parents were there, but it was very difficult. There was a lot of anger and fear in my house. So I would look for times like that to go find a 4-leaf clover for a nickel, and I'd go buy penny candy. You know, that would be a big treat because we had.
When she gave you that job to do, what she was doing was she was finding you something to focus on, wasn't she?
She was a retired school teacher.
Yeah.
Stella is her name.
Yeah.
I think a lot of her. So Jim helped me go back to these early teachers.
Jim is the Lakota guy.
Right.
Who's
Sorry.
your spiritual teacher at this
I'm
time.
talking like she knows the story. She knows who I am. So I'm forgetting that you guys are all listening.
This is good.
So Jim took me back to those teachers, and then he said, come forward with each of those teachers, whether it was a positive lesson or a negative lesson, regardless of what the lesson was, embrace that lesson and say thank you. And I remember a kindergarten teacher that I had who was about 5 foot tall and about 5 foot wide. And she loved me. She would pinch my cheeks and hug me. Evidently, I was a cute kid.
Who doesn't love you?
I don't know,
right?
but I must have been a cute kid because I remember her name. I won't say her name because I don't want to bring her family name into it, but I remember Mrs. W. And she would just hug me. And I was in kindergarten, so 5 years old. And I remember it profoundly. And then moving forward to other experiences that I had. And that would be part of getting my mind quiet. Even though you're thinking, you're slowing it down. You're slowing it down.
Can I just say that I think the memory of that teacher hugging you so strongly in your mind is such a strong memory. It's probably because at 5 years old, there weren't too many hugs anywhere else, were there?
Right. Yeah.
So when you do receive affection from that one person, when you've not received affection necessarily for anybody else, when you do receive affection from that one person, that's very important, isn't it?
Well, it's kind of the basis for this whole story, in my opinion, and from my experience. The love that was extended to me to learn these ways, the love that I would feel coming back into my life, my workaday life after a 4-day Vision Quest, the love that you feel for the people that support you to go do those things that are present and not necessarily physically present. I've had some powerful experiences with it, but the message is listening and figuring out a way, finding for me, I've found many teachers. Rosemary's been one, many teachers that have helped me to quiet my mind. And I'm a fire retrospective, and if you read soul signs, you'll know
it's
more.
The worst.
It's difficult. It's not easy, and I don't think it's the worst. I think the earth, like my wife is an earth something, and I think that's difficult.
Here's the deal. Here's the thing. for those of you who know soul signs and know about soul signs, you will know that being a fire sign can be tough. Being a fire sign and a retrospective soul, which is what Jeff is, I think it's not the worst. I think it's the hardest of all of the soul signs. I think it's the hardest for a retrospective soul. It's the hardest to be quiet. It's the hardest one to combat, because there's so much emotion involved in that. And you know, a fire sign is an emotional sign anyway, so they have to deal with their emotions. And what we're trying to do, being on this earth, is we're trying to elevate ourselves in a spiritual way. We're trying to become better people. We're trying to become more aware, and so on. And I think for a fire sign, a particularly retrospective soul, whose inclination is to always look at what is wrong before you look at what is right, the inclination is to always see the glass half empty as opposed to the glass half full. I think it's very, very difficult for retrospective souls to elevate that, and to learn to be grateful, and to learn to understand that your soul, your glass is actually more than half full and often overflowing. So I think that retrospective souls, fire signs and retrospective souls, have the most difficult time doing that. However, when they do it and when they achieve it, you cannot wish for any better. And I think you've achieved that. I think you've achieved that level of understanding, and you strive every day to be better, I think. So go ahead.
Tag on to what Rosemary is saying, for me, having a physical experience helped me a lot with understanding the other, the idea of the other side. I don't have a full understanding of that by any far shade of the imagination. But being able to physically go and do something, those physical practices that I have help me. There's a friend of mine, and I've shared this with you before, there's a friend of mine that has said to me, I can't think my way into right acting. I have to act my way into right thinking. Now, that doesn't take away the idea. I have to have a thought to have an action, right? I mean, that's part of what we do. But I can't think about things and have things change. I have to do it. And that's something that I'm really happy about, because it's taken me to many experiences with a lot of people that have guided me toward quieting action, sitting me on a hill, which is a little extreme. Maybe there's softer, easier ways, but not for this cat. I mean, I got to do that. I tend to do things the hard way.
Yeah, that's who you are.
We joke around about it. I said,
You're a fire sign.
At 67 years old, my edges are a little rounder than they used to be. My edges were pretty sharp when I was younger. Now they're getting rounded a little, and that's a good thing, because I'm not as reactive as I was. That's the thing that I've noticed in this evolution of listening that I'm getting is being able to love differently and have less high expectations about things I have no knowledge of. And another friend says, expectations are planned resentments, and that was my MO. I always
say that if you expect, then you can expect disappointment.
Right.
Because expectations create disappointment. Rather be hopeful. Be hopeful that somebody's going to behave the way that you'd like them to. But if not, well, be hopeful that you're going to behave the way you should behave. If not, well, you're not going to be disappointed. But when you expect people to do things, or you expect people to behave in a certain way, or you expect that of yourself, you're creating that perfect, sort of petri dish. There it is, bubbling away. You're gonna get disappointment every single time when you expect, because you'll always expect too much. That's because we're human beings. So so carry on.
I'm pretty much done. I feel like the story, I could continue and go through the many times that I've done that discipline of sitting on the hill. One comes to the front. For years, I went to either Montana, South Dakota, or Alberta, Canada to do these things. And I live in Maine. And I finally, after years, I kept, there was this voice in my head that was saying, why don't you do this at home?
Yeah.
How come you're not doing this at home? And it's like my expectation, like a lot of people, and I'll use this general term, this is not meant to judge anyone, but I can't only go to church on Sunday and be okay. And that was what I would do. I would go in July or June, or in the summertime, I would go out west and have these amazing experiences that were valid, good, real, all good things. But then I'd come back home. It was like going on sabbatical. And then I'd come back home and I was alone. And I don't mean like I'm alone. I've got, my whole life is in Maine. I've got beautiful
Got great
family of
family.
friends. And I mean, I'm not alone ever. Besides that, I know I've got the spirit world that is there. So about 3 years ago, I decided to go on the hill near where I live, and I asked people to come and support, and they did, and it was amazing. My dad and my mom came through on the last day. I was getting a little antsy, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm leaving here. And I'd had some nice experiences over the few days that I was out there, and I won't tell that whole story, but my dad and I have similar physical movements. And the first time he came through with Rosemary, when she started to describe him, as soon as she started to describe him, I knew it was my father. And I hadn't gone to her anticipating hearing from anyone, and I just didn't know what to expect. I was skeptic for sure. I had never experienced it, so of course I'd be skeptical. And my dad showed up. Well, my dad showed up for me when I was on the hill in Maine, and he leaned forward, and his shirt sleeve was rolled up like mine are. And he said, there's my good big boy right there. And I just started to grin.
Nice.
And I shook my head. And it was mid to late morning on a Sunday, actually. It was after 4 days of being there. And then my mom popped up and said, oh, that's just Jeff. He does this stuff all the time. And that was my mom. Her persona was perfect. It came through as clear. And I said, okay, I'm done here. I packed up my stuff.
Yeah, but how nice.
Oh,
You brought it home.
It was amazing.
And there it is. It's and this is what we're trying to teach people. You don't have to go traveling here, there, and everywhere. Although it's good to do it. It's nice to do it, nice to experience it. But the spirit world is right on your doorstep. It's right there for you. Wherever you are, there it is waiting for you. Your soul is right there within you. Whatever you are your soul. Your soul is you. It is right there. So you don't have to go on amazing journeys to go on a journey. So okay. So
I'm gonna wrap up with one more short story. Last year,
it's got to be quick.
Last year we did the same thing, except this time, some people that I know wanted to have an experience. Not going to have my experience, or as you know, nobody can have somebody else's experience. So I put them out, and I sat back and watched the support people back at the fire that we kept going for the duration of the time that people were away on the hill. We would keep a fire burning, and the people that were out on the hill asked people to come and support. And I got to watch those people for 4 days. I came in and out like a hummingbird. I was just kind of touching base, making sure everything was going okay. And the joy that I felt watching those people supporting and loving their friends from here, knowing they were out there, and those people out there knowing their friends were at the fire, was such a joy to me, because a bunch of people got to experience a moment of connection, of acting,
of true
and loving and caring. And to watch that was so amazing. And I felt like I was outside it all. It wasn't about me at all. It was about these people and their experience with their friends. And I got to be there to see it. And what a gift. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So I think I just want to pull one point out of that, because I think it is important. I've got a very good friend who at the moment is going through a really, really tough time. This tough time is on and off and on and off, as we do. We sort of fall back into patterns, don't we? We do the same things over and over. you know, the definition of insanity.
Expecting different results.
Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And this is what I'm here at this moment with my friend who's doing the same thing. And you know what you should do. You absolutely know, especially if you come to someone like me or you come to someone like Jeff, you're listening, that people can tell you what to do. You know in your heart what you need to do, but they're just thoughts in your head. You've got to take the action. You have to take the action. So the thought might come, but without the action, the thought it just disappears into the atmosphere and nothing changes. Nothing ever changes. So, all right, the end.
How many people, when they have a thought, will relate that thought to someone by saying, well, I'm trying to do this.
Yeah.
And I laugh and say, no, you're thinking.
No, you're thinking about it, but you're not doing it.
Told to me many times.
Well, I have to say that people often have said to me in the past, how did you deal with your parents? How did you deal? What about your mother? How did you? What did you do? And I just got on with it because sometimes the time for thinking is over. The time for doing is, if you don't do, you're lost. And when you don't do, when you don't take the actions that you know you should take, then don't look back later and then complain that nothing changed. Because the only person who you all can change, who we can change, is ourselves. We change our attitude, we change our actions, then other people change or not, but we change who we are. We change our expectations, we stop having those expectations because we know we're going to be disappointed. So it's about taking action. Okay, the end. That's our story.
I've got one more. No, just kidding.
You've got 1,000 more. You've got 1,000 more. Anyway, so Chris, let's go back to the chat room, shall we, and see what's going on there.
Yes. Dean's on. He says, I hear you, Jeff. I'm a retrospective too.
He is.
Dean's been sick all week, but he says visiting with Rosemary is always healing.
Oh, well, I'm sending you healing, Dean. Don't worry.
All right. I'm going to scroll back to beginning before the story because there were a couple of people who had something in there. And that'll give everybody a chance to get into the chat room. All right. Karen's saying hello to you, Jeff, and everyone.
Is that how I think it must be?
Yes.
Hey, Karen.
Cha's saying this all makes sense. Rhonda says it makes sense, and that had to do with spirit guide, what you were talking about earlier. Almy is asking, is my deceased dog Berto okay? Please let him know how much we love and miss him.
I love when people ask about their little furry creatures. Little furry four-legged. Wait a minute. The Native Americans have this the tiny winged creatures, which are those little, the flies, butterflies, and what else? Dragonflies. But this and all the creatures. Some we don't like, some we do. Then we have the four-legged creatures, and then we have the two-legged creatures. So we have the tiny winged creatures, the
crawly ones.
Thank you. Yes, and the crawl. They call them the crawlers. The crawlers, which are, I guess, worms and caterpillars and all of that stuff. It's now world fascinating. We have all of these things. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going, so keep going, Chris. Because I've lost the plot.
Maggie was talking about, when you were talking about spirit guides, says, I just look up and say thank you, grateful for any and all help.
Perfect.
Me too.
Rhonda says, I've been practicing strengthening my aura and not letting others' auras affect or bump into mine. Wrapping myself in the rainbow of color. I feel it working.
Yay! Good. Well, I'm going to be showing you how to paint your auras. maybe next week, maybe even this coming Thursday. Never know. Keep going, Chris.
Flory says, thank you so much for your awesome insight. I love the 7 sounds idea.
I love that too. I love that too.
Try it. It really works. Use it.
Yeah, yeah. Don't just love it, use it. You know, it's like people say, I've learned so much. I think Rhonda said, I've learned so much from you, Rosemary, last Saturday. Lovely, and I love that you learn it, but now I want you to say what you learned and use it and put those things into action. So that's what we're
And you won't do it wrong. It's yours.
exactly. You
Yeah.
can't do it wrong. You do it the way you do it.
Right.
Rhonda's asking you, Jeff, have you ever done a spirit quest in Moab, Utah?
Not yet.
Is it on the bucket list? Is it something you want to do?
Not yet. I've been up to just south, actually just east of the Rockies, up in southern Alberta, Canada. I've been in the southern hills of the Rockies in Montana, and I've been in the Black Hills area of South Dakota. I've been around a lot of other places in the country, but not for ceremony, so to speak. But those are places that I've been.
Keep going, Chris.
Eric saying, wonderful story and experiences with Jeff. I'm looking back on what I can do to help facilitate my home. Coincidence? No, universe is pointing me in this direction to do what I can on my part.
Yes. Yes, Eric.
Maggie's saying, I'm listening while mucking out soggy paddocks. I guess you could say this is my meditative time.
Get close to the earth. That's a good thing.
Yeah, but no, I'm thinking horses and the droppings and the, and all that stuff.
That's healthy stuff.
Good for the roses.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Mark says, Jeff, what an amazing experience, and hope that each of us have this experience. I wouldn't be where I am today had you, Rosemary, not shared. Now I had a spirit guide and my personal angel, my brother, and the confidence knowing I am not alone, even when I am literally alone.
Yes.
I know and sense so many around me that I'm in such inner peace.
Well, thanks, Mark, for sharing that. We appreciate it. Okay, keep going, Chris.
I think this is where, Rosemary, you have to remind people if they don't put anything in the chat room.
Oh, yes. Well, here's the thing. If you don't participate, I'm not participating. We're going to go and eat some chicken. I did roast a chicken before Jeff came, so we could go and nibble at that chicken. It smells good.
It smells
right?
good.
It smells
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good. So if you don't participate, we're gone. We're only here for as long as you participate. We've done our bit. We've told our story. We would love to hear. If you had an experience, we'd like to hear about it. If you have a story, it can only be short because we don't have too much time left. But if you've had a story, please share it with us. Or we've got Jeff here, and Jeff has you've had a world of experience, haven't you, really, in so many ways. Jeff mentioned earlier that he lost his son, Eric, who I've spoken to on numerous occasions. Even as we're rubbing shoulders, he's rubbing shoulders with, that. He's rubbing shoulders with us. He just pops in. But I did like, and I think it's very important, I liked when you told the story of, when I said, Eric's here, and you were so busy doing other things. Oh, yeah. And all of a sudden, when I sternly said, no, he's here, it did bring you up short, and it did help you to understand that, and I don't think it's just you. I think we don't listen. We get so busy with our lives. And the thing I hate the most about this life of ours right now is when I see people walking down the street with those ear things, those ear pods. They're listening to music, or they're whatever it is, they're doing. They're totally unaware. And you may be one of those people. Get your earphones out. There are so many things to listen to. As Jeff said, that your amazing teacher said to you, go out there and listen to 7 things. But you can walk down the street and do it. You don't have to go up on the hill. You can go out into the garden. You can go for a walk in the park. You can go to the supermarket if it comes to that. And it doesn't matter how noisy things are around you. If you're listening, if you're paying attention, you're listening to things that go above and beyond this ordinary life of ours, this, this human existence of ours. If you pay attention and you listen, you will hear so much that you will never hear a thing if you don't take your earpods out of your ears, people.
The other day I was flying down here and I was in the airport in Charlotte in South Carolina, right? Charlotte, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And on my way to Florida, and I had my phone in my backpack, and I was sitting down in a chair, and I looked around the terminal, and I looked all around, and I don't remember seeing anyone that wasn't looking at an electronic device, and I thought, holy smoke, that's not exactly what I said. In the center of the
holy guacamole, is that what you said?
In the center of the concourse area where it was a big circle, and it had 13 spokes. And I stood in the center, and I just stood there. And this man walked right straight toward me with a bag. It didn't look like he wanted to talk with me, but he walked right straight toward me and stood next to me. And there was nobody else around. And it was a circle, maybe 12-foot diameter. And I thought he was getting a little too cheeky, not like, but his energy was kind of pushing on me a little bit. But I didn't fight against it. I looked at him and I said, "How you doing today?" He said, "Pretty good." He said, "A lot of chaos going on." And he was going, he said, "My business is chaos." I said, "Oh, you must be a preacher or a helper." He goes, "Well, I'm not a preacher, but I am a helper." I said, "Good for you." I said, "So am I." I said, "Thank you for coming over and talking." And then we had this wonderful chat. Where you from? Where you from? Then his wife came. Here's my wife. We're going here and we're going there. Do you know about this place? My brother lives in Maine. I said, "Oh, I live in Maine."
That all came
boom,
that
boom.
all came from you searching for a space.
I was sitting in the chair watching people looking at electronics, and I got up out of that, and I just walked over to this circle. And for me, the circle is very important. It helps me to stay connected to way more than what I'm thinking about. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And immediately this man came to me, and I just thought, wow, this is, after he left, I thought this
connecting with
so
energy.
cool.
So his energy was the same as your energy.
Change,
Nice.
Have a thought, change in action, or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, keep going.
All right. Annika says, quieting the mind is the hardest thing to do. I often have lots of thoughts going through my mind. I used to often share my day with my darling, but he is no longer alive, so my outlet is gone.
No, we would agree. We would disagree. Definitely, loudly and clearly we would disagree with that, my darling. He isn't gone, and he's still there. And if you care to share with him, I know that he'll be listening.
Rhonda's asking, Rosemary, will you be doing a webinar where Gray Eagle speaks anytime soon?
Why do you want to come? We will be organizing those things. Unfortunately, we had to cancel unexpectedly our thing on Thursday because we had banging and clattering and people around, and my pool cage is now finished. I'm waiting now for the gutters to come on the roof of the house. It depends how much longer we're going to have the banging and the clattering, because we cannot do it if there are going to be workmen here. But absolutely, yes, as soon as we can, we will be having another seminar, Grey Eagle Speaks. Why wouldn't we do that? It's amazing. Maybe we'll do that for my birthday, May. What do you think?
A great time.
Yeah.
Everything is blooming around the world at that time of year.
Yeah. Maybe we'll focus on having a Grey Eagle Speaks around May the 19th. I don't know what day it is, but if it happened to be a Saturday, that would be perfect. I can't think of anything I'd rather do for my birthday than that. So yes, we'll keep looking at the website. Go to the website. For those of you who don't know where the website is, excuse me, rosemaryaltea.com, and there you have it, www.rosemaryaltea.com. Go there and you'll see we keep posting things on there on a fairly regular basis. Okay.
Eric says last weekend's healing webinar was amazing. I learned new things and more details. I felt like I was floating on clouds the rest of that day and continued on the following days.
Oh, well, thank you, Eric, for sharing that.
Nice.
Thank you. That's so nice of you. And I love the fact that you said, that you learned more, because it doesn't matter how much you know, there's always more to learn. People think that I am the guru. And of course, in some people's eyes, I am, because I know such a lot. But I'm learning every day, and I want to learn every day, and I want to learn more and more every day. And I think that we all should be open to learning. So I appreciate that you're saying that, Eric, very much so.
Cha is asking, do you have any kind of guidance and or messages? I'm okay if there isn't any messages because I've enjoyed this live stream.
Well, good. We do from time to time give messages and so on, but excuse me. But keep tuning in, because you never know what's going to happen, do you? You never ever know what's coming along when we do these shows. You never know. You never know what you're going to happen. What's going to happen when I'm around? You got anything to say about that?
I'm just thinking about a bowl of ice cream, and
Go ahead.
and it can't be big enough. If somebody served me a bowl that had 2 scoops in it, it would be enough for me to taste it. But I always want more. So it's like come around here, and there's a 30-second aha moment, and then like the fella just said, you're floating on a cloud for 2 days. It's not a whole bowl. It's a moment. It can be just a moment.
Are you saying I'm like a bowl of ice cream?
No, not at all. Not at all. Just trying to.
No, I know it.
I like food, so yeah.
I'm happy to be like a bowl of ice cream. I'm happy. Keep going, Chris.
Maggie's asking, did you connect with any of the workers?
What? I don't know what that means.
When your workers were here, the people for the bathroom, the roof, the pool cage, did you give them any messages?
Say things like, I can't tell you things like that. I might have. On occasion, yes. I could never divulge. It's private. That stuff is. I'll think of a good story. I promise you, Maggie. I'll think of a good story to tell one Saturday morning about workers and so on.
Spontaneous experience.
Yeah, spontaneous experiences. I mean, and you've got to be very careful, I think. Well, I've learned to be very, very careful, because I'll often, when people come to the house, I'll often see things about them, or I'll see people with them from the spirit world. But I've learned to be very careful, because you can't just go up to somebody and say, hey, so-and-so's here for you. It's scary. People get scared. We have to go into it gently. I've learned to go into these things gently. But I do have 1 or 2 stories. I have a great story about a painter and a rat. I told that story maybe.
The Painter and the Rat.
Painter,
sounds like a good title.
What an intriguing title.
The Painter and the Rat. And that is.
Okay, here's a story to come, folks.
Maybe next Saturday, if Chris can remind me, next Saturday, I'll tell you about the Painter and the Rat. It's such a good story, that.
I'll be thinking about that all week now.
Well, I can tell you when we're done.
Yeah.
So you don't have to wait. Anyway, all right.
Well, you're right at time,
We
Rosemary.
are at time. Anything else before we close?
Dean says it's a -10 wind chill this morning.
Stop it, Dean. Oh, poor you. Good for us, right?
I'm all right with that.
70, nice, wonderful breezes. Anyway, all right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it. Definitely enjoyed it this morning. It's always, excuse me, it's always nice to see Jeff. It's always nice to have Jeff around. And and also, of course, thanks to Chris, great facilitating. Thank you, Jeff. I've loved it. last but by no means least, of course, we always say thank you to Gregor for being with us. And they didn't. Give me a minute. Yeah, and sorry, your son thinks I'm going to forget him. I've got to say thanks to Eric. Eric, you didn't participate. I'm thinking, why? Anyway, he wants to be mentioned on the show. So, Jeff, your son Eric is right with us. It's right next to us there, standing with Grey Eagle and interfering and interrupting as he would, as you know he would. So we got a whole house full of people here. Anyway, so thank you once again for joining us. Please, 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 have a fabulous weekend until I see you again, which will be Thursday morning. We'll do a maybe we'll talk about auras on Thursday morning, and I'll show you how to teach you how to paint your aura if you'd like to know more about that. That's Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And next Saturday, I'll plan to tell you the story about the painter and the rat. One or two of you might have heard that story before. Until then, and until I see you all again, thank you again so very much. You know I love you all. So please, please, everyone, have a very, very blessed rest of the day and have a very blessed weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.